Is it? There it goes.
It says we're live, Dr.
Come
Kimberly.
on, y'all, it's time. Come on, let's go, let's go. Let's rolling on the road with the doc. Rolling on the road with
Yes.
Dave. Rolling on the road with the doc. 100 shades of the possibilities with Dave and Dr. Burton. All right, all right. That was cool. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
yes.
That was
Wow.
We are excited today. It is Tuesday, September 3rd. Can you believe it? So, thank you so much for tuning in. If you are on GRTV 25, again, today is Tuesday, September 3rd, and the information that you're going to receive today does not have an expiration date on it. Our guest today is Miss Ellen Atkins. She has worked in acute care at hospice. She's been a private sector in the private sector, and her nursing career expands over 40 years, touching the lives of many people in the community. And a couple of folks that reached out today that said that they really love you is Clee Jackson, who is the
Oakley.
president of the NAACP Grand Rapids here. And we had Ella Bonner reached out today and said, "Oh my goodness, I really love Miss Ellen," and said that she's going to tune in, and many others that said, even your first lady said, "Ah, thank you so much for letting me know." So we are excited today, as well as our viewers, that you are on the show. And we have an African American woman who is older, and she is wearing, I believe it looks like a red top.
Yes, girl.
And we have, our usual suspects, our host, Dave Bukowski, with the ponytail growing, and looks like he's having a pretty good day because it is neatly tucked behind his ears on today.
No frazzles.
No
Okay,
frazzles,
then.
no frazzles on today. And your host, you know me as always, yes, went with a different shade of purple on the lipstick, went with the lilac today, along with the outfit. So thank you so much for tuning in. Um, many, many initial response said, "What a great topic." However, a sad one.
Yes, it
However, a
is.
sad one. And I want to say on the outset, I do have my tissues over here. And thank you so much for choosing to share your story.
It is a pleasure to be with you today, Dr. Kim. And it is a pleasure to be able to just share a story with all of you. This is technically called National Suicide Prevention Month, but in my heart, it is this day, every day. What I
Hmm.
would like to share with you this afternoon, friends, is my heart. I'm going to start with two facts, and these are CDC facts. The rate of African American suicides is very high among African American men. That's fact number one. The second fact is that it does not affect African American women as much, although our rates are high as well. Now, I want to give you a personal touch into this devastating disease because that's what it is. As African Americans, we do not really want to recognize mental illness. We don't want to recognize depression, but they're real. And the reason I can tell you that and speak to you personally about it is because I've experienced it. December 27th, 2014, my 20-year-old grandson took his life. After many years of struggling with depression, medications, doctors, all the things, he just could not go on any longer. As a nurse, I saw the signs. I know what they are. He was starting to give away things. He seemed to be happy. And I'm wanting to, as his grandmother, think that he's okay. He's going to be all right. He's beat it. But the facts are, the brain is not matured enough at 20. If he had lived another 5 years, I think he would still be here because the brain would have been mature enough to handle it. But he didn't. That was not the gift that God was going to give to him. I miss him, but I want to talk to you about some things that I want you to look for as grandparents, as mothers, as fathers, as cousins, as friends, because people who have depression really tell you what they have. We just choose to ignore it because we don't want to see it. And I'm sorry to say, as African Americans, we're really bad at it because the one thing that we don't want to hear after the stigma that we've attached to it is there's something wrong with our folks, not just your child, but your husband, your wife, because depression can enter your life at any age. But unfortunately, it's probably been there for a long time, and we've just tried our best to pretend like it wasn't. The biggest stigma is, of course, that there's nothing wrong with Junebug. He's all right. Even though I had years of people saying to me from pre-kindergarten all the way up to his high school years that there was something wrong. I just didn't want to hear it. And that's the biggest problem, folks. We don't want to hear it. We don't want to believe it. We want to assume that everything is all right. It is not. We don't value mental illness as we value cancer, heart disease, any other disease. But believe me, it is just as painful as having a cancer. It is in many ways a cancer. It's just one that there's no cure for. My grandson was medicated. People said to me after he passed, well, didn't you try to help him? Yes, we did. We helped him in the ways that we thought would work. We listened to the psychiatrists. We listened to the healthcare practitioners who were supposed to know. But here's the thing, friends. When I took him to Forest View, and I'm going to name the institution, when I took him there, the psychiatrist that was seeing him had a prescription pad on his desk. And every time that we went, he just increased the medication. That was not the right thing to do. And I said that finally, I just said, you know what? Do not write another prescription. The medicine that he's taking right now has him drooling. We need to find some other ways to help him. He was seeing a therapist. We thought all these things were working, but in the end, they were not working. So let's talk about some ways that we can help our children a little bit better. The first thing we need to do is recognize that there is something going on. When your child or your loved one is having a bad day, we all have a bad day. That's life. But every day cannot be the same. When you see that someone is hurting, we can't ignore it and pretend like, oh, well, it'll be okay tomorrow, because it's not going to be okay tomorrow. The problem is going to continue. You have to listen. And I don't mean just listen with your ears. I want you to use all your senses. As parents, grandparents, loved ones, you know when someone is hurting, and it's easy just to say, well, you'll be fine. You're not. You're not fine tomorrow. And we don't know how to help all the time. So sometimes we need to ask someone as well, because as the grandmother and my daughter, her husband, my husband, the entire family tried to figure out ways to help him. But at some point we needed help too. We needed help to deal with it. If you need to ask someone what to do, then don't be afraid to do that. Just ask, because you may need to know how to deal with the problem. And it's dynamic, it's ever changing. The last year of his life he lived with me, And twice I saved his life because he had overdosed. I'm glad that I was here to save him, but in the end, there was no saving him because his mind was made up. The last 2 months of his life, he was doing the things that you need to look out for. He was jovial. He was engaging people in conversations. He was seeing friends that he hadn't seen for years. He was a video game aficionado. He loved playing those crazy games. He started giving those games away. Now, what I wanted to think was, all right, he's sick of those games. He's learned them and he can play them. He doesn't need to. That's not a challenge for him anymore. Then he wanted to see his father in Chicago, who he really didn't have much of a relationship with. He was closing all the doors in his life, doing the things, walking that last mile of the way home. And as a healthcare professional, I should have been able to see it, but I didn't want to see it. And that's what we do, friends. We don't want to see it. Use all the senses that you have. Try to help if you can. You may not be able to change the outcome, but you can certainly have more of an input. Get the help that you need to help your loved one. Now let's talk about a couple of the things that make people want to take their lives. For African Americans, as I stated earlier, the stigma attached with asking for help. My own husband is bipolar. The first 10 years of my marriage, I didn't know what the heck was wrong with me because I didn't understand what was wrong with him. I thought he was all right. He looked good, went to work every day, came home every day, had dinner, did all the things that you're supposed to do, but he was struggling with bipolar disorder. The difference in him and my grandson was he was older. His brain had matured enough so he could handle it. He did have some crazy ways, don't get me wrong. But I thought, when he was in a bad mood, what did you do? Maybe dinner wasn't all that it could have been. Maybe he didn't like what you were wearing. Maybe the kids were making too much noise. No. His mother, typical mother from the South, he was born in good old Mississippi. And, little black boys in Mississippi didn't get any help for that. The assumption was that, okay, you'll be fine. He overcame it. And I talked with his mother one day. I said, sometimes the husband really acts crazy. She said, he's been acting like that all his life. So you see how early it starts? We see it as parents. We just don't want to address the fact that there's something different about your child. How many folks do you think are sitting in jail today because the world thinks that they are acting out? There's something wrong with them. Yep, there is something wrong with them. If someone would sit down and spend 5 minutes talking with them, maybe they'd see that bipolar disorder. Maybe they would pick up that schizophrenia. But we don't take time. So you got someone in jail who's being treated for what? Nothing. The problem is not being addressed. How many of your children are having problems that you're not addressing today?
Well, it's almost quarter. It's almost quarter after the hour, and we want to say thank you so much for tuning into Rolling on the Road with Dr. Kimberly and Dave. And if you are watching via GRTV 25, today is Tuesday, September 3rd, and the information that you are receiving is not expirable. We have lots of comments, and we want to say thank you to Vertaji, Dr. Vertaji, who is watching from Detroit. She says this is the much needed conversation, and said absolutely true about not having those conversations or wanting to accept. Lillian Howell Bell is watching, and she says hello. Artie Franklin is watching, and Maddie Lopez is watching from Arkansas. Hey, Maddie. And we have a ton of hearts and lights that are going up during the conversation. A couple of years ago, we did our art prize. Oh, here we go. Lillian Howbell says society has lost the concern for mental health and people don't identify with the issues that they have.
No, they don't identify with them because we don't want to accept it, first of all. We don't want to believe that there's a problem. And it's not just our lack of acceptance and the stigma. There are many reasons why people feel hopeless. Let's face it, the healthcare system has not been our friend. I'm hoping someday it will be, but I don't think at my age that I will see it in my lifetime. And I'm a young thing, 39 plus 39, and it just goes on from there. But the healthcare inequities and the mistrust for the healthcare system are real. But the everyday things that we face, just the lack of acceptance, racism, not just in our everyday life, in everything that we do, I can't think of too many occasions where I haven't seen racism pop its head up. When you're looking at our children, we lived through a time when civil rights was a real thing. I've been here long enough to remember what was going on in the 60s. Young people, 17, 18-year-olds, don't have that history behind them. They don't know that. And they expect to be treated decently by everyone. But what do we have? Institutional racism.
We have a comment.
Okay.
Dr. Vertaji says, I am on this mental health to bring awareness to the community. Thank you, Dr. Vertaji. Can you please tell us some of the ways that you have brought awareness to the community? So we'll wait for her to come back with that. But I agree that there is so much of our history that is not being taught. Number one, is not being taught anymore. We don't have the conversations about it anymore, nor is there a place for our young people to even have that expression of it, if you will, even if the conversations are there. I think that we try as much as possible to be inclusive. I think Dave would agree. We have this big, huge calendar that you go to, and it tells you what either it's a day, it's a week, it's a month, or it's local, or it's national, of all of these things that are going on. We're constantly having to put out something. This was Labor Day, so you do something for Labor Day. We have ADA celebration, so we do something for ADA. It's Martin Luther King's birthday, so we do something for Martin Luther King. And we have Mental Health Awareness Day. We have Black History Month. We spent a whole month, Dave and I, bringing in those, and the topics that we came up with was 56 years later, have we realized the things that Martin Luther King marched on Washington for? Dave gave us the list, because the only thing that we rehearse is I have a dream. Dave, do you remember some of the things on the list offhand?
Well, it was the March on Washington for jobs and housing. That's why folks went to Washington, and they presented a list of demands. And I'd be surprised if quality healthcare wasn't on the list. And if, of course, 1960 was a different time or 1964 was a different time to what kind of healthcare do we have? But it talked about, again, decent jobs at decent pay, housing. I mean, these are still crises in way too much of our community.
They are certainly, David, still issues, and I'm sure Dr. King addressed them. But how do you address every day you're standing next to someone who feels that you're inferior to them? Our young people have to deal with this every day. They don't recognize it the way that Dr. Kim or I would recognize it. They just assume, I'm just not being liked. But it's way more than that. And social media is not helping our children. The things that we see, the racist remarks, the things that people say and do in this world today are hard for our young people to deal with. It's hard for me to deal with it, but it goes on.
It
And
does. We have a comment from, so Dr. Pataji says that she does mental health forums and conversations, and she also does parent workshops. Alfreda Moore from the National Church of God of Christ Business and Professional Women's Federation is watching. Thank you so much for watching. Shantae Paul is watching. I'm hoping that she will chime in. She's got some great insight as it relates to this. Lillian Howe Bell says, yes, we need to do more. Acceptance is key, but being denied is another obstacle to face. I think that because of the lack of awareness and again, an acceptance of the available resources. Hold on, it says more. It says, and again, acceptance of the available resources. People who are suffering mental illnesses turn to other outlets, which most of us, or most of the time, is self-destruction, or in many times the worst presents itself. And Shayna says, I agree, social media is not helpful. She's tuning in from Bel Air, Maryland. Thank you, Shayna.
I certainly agree with that. The suffering that goes on this little thing with my granddaughter is amazing. The things that people say. I'm looking, Dr. Kim, at the title for a minute. Loved Ones Left Behind. Can we touch that for just a moment?
Yeah, I have a comment from Shantae Paul. She said the stigma of getting counseling as a biopic person is very hard when generations of parents have told their children to not tell people what's going on in the home, as well as they think that you're crazy for having problems.
And she is right about that.
It's all in your head, right? It's
yes, it is.
Just
there's nothing wrong with you. You're fine, but you're not fine. The biggest.
Hold on. We got a lot here. So it says it is very vital to be able to express the feelings we carry inside that can affect our mental health. And that was from Shantae. And then Lillian Howe said she agrees. I personally, like, even on yesterday, it was another holiday without my husband. I was going somewhere new, so I was going to have to be by myself. The house was not accessible. So as everybody else was going inside the home, I had to sit outside by myself, which for me just added another layer. And I'm trying not to cry. And my caregiver said, look, you don't have to stay. Let me know. I can take you home now. And I said, well, I'm going to try to stay. And I said, somebody will take me home. I said, if I can't handle it. But, when you talk about mental illness and then a person with a physical disability, that really compounds.
Yes.
So here it is. I already have PTSD. I'm already struggling, with some depression. And then I'm in a situation that exacerbates it. And, nobody is really looking. And they're just like, oh, you sad because you miss your husband. Oh, girl, you'll be okay. That was the response. Oh, girl, you're going to be okay. It'll be all right. Just, sit over here by us and you'll be just fine. Well, it doesn't make it fine just because I changed the positions of where I'm sitting. My mind and my mental state has not changed because I still felt isolated. And I'm also isolated because I'm sitting with two couples and I'm no longer a couple. So here I am, the fifth wheel. And, so all of this is kind of, tossing in my mind. But I have to go back to, you've gone through therapy, you graduated after how many years? I'm like, wow, you graduated therapy? You do. But go back to the skills. are my skill set strong enough? And I love what you said about the brain being mature enough to handle it. Because trust me, even at almost 30, when I did attempt to commit suicide, I thought that, oh, wow, I have children, I've been in the military, I should have a mature enough brain to process this and not want to commit suicide. But that wasn't the case. It wasn't, not even at 30, but now at almost 60, it's there. I can
Yes.
sit back and say, okay, oh, wait a minute. Shayna, we got all kinds of comments. Here we go. So Shayna says, I learned to break the cycle. My children and I have done counseling apart and together. And she needed counseling because she was living with a disability. She acquired her disability after having two children. And then here we go. Lillian says, yes, again, accepting that a person has a mental illness is the first step. And in many cases, it never happens. It is a generational curse in many cases. Mental illness is real. I wish I could help everyone.
Sometimes just listening helps, but as I said, you have to listen with all your senses. And Dr. Kim, I appreciate what you said about feeling like you weren't included, and the word salad that you get from people, the platitudes, you'll be all right, is the most overused statement that there is. You're not all right. And you said out loud that you weren't. The people that you were talking to did not hear you, did they?
No, because it's like, it'll be okay. Just come sit over here. And, we understand. Then it was, well, we understand, but it's going to be all right. At least you got out the house and you're not sitting at home, by yourself. But you can be in a group of people and be even more lonely and alone than if you were at home.
Absolutely, you can. Listening with all of your senses helps, but knowing what to do is not easy. With everyone, it's a different situation. But one thing that I have learned in dealing with my grandchildren and great grandchildren, when they come into the house in the afternoon after being in school all day, they need a few minutes. You need to give them this I see you contact, because what they've been through all day is quite often more than a notion. It's not easy being a kid.
It's
Not easy
not.
being a grown up.
We got a comment. Lillian House said, yes, we need to do more. Acceptance is key, but being denied is another obstacle to face. I think that
Yes.
because of the lack of awareness and again, acceptance of the available resources, people who are suffering mental illness turn to other outlets, which is, oh, she said it again. Okay, send it back, that it is destructive. I think
It is.
for me, that's never been, that self-destruction, where you see people that are cutters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hold on. Maddie says, we got a comment from Arkansas. Maddie says, I always feel like she's left out of everything.
And I certainly understand that feeling very well because it is real. Dr. Kim, the thing that you just said a few minutes ago about different ways of dealing with it, my grandson used some different means. I couldn't understand why he chose that funny smelling marijuana to smoke. He would medicate with drugs. In fact, that was how he took his life, with fentanyl.
Where do you get fentanyl?
It's not hard to get it, Dr. Kim.
Last week I had a procedure. I'm telling you, I had a 2-hour MRI last Monday. They gave me propofol and fentanyl, and with my baclofen pump, I'm just now literally coming out of that.
Mm-hmm.
It has taken a whole week because with my baclofen pump, it's in my it's a catheter That's well, the pump is in my back, and then the catheter goes all the way up into my T1. So this medication is running through my entire system. And when you add something else to it, I
Yes.
don't even want to have to take the aspirin that I got to take every day. But when you add, medication to that, and especially as strong as propofol and and fentanyl, it stays. You'd be surprised how much of that medication stays in your system. It gets inside your muscles and your tissues. And if you don't like go get a massage and have it flushed out, it'll stay in there. But here it is just running through my body. And for a whole week, I felt like I really could not function.
It has a long shelf life.
And I cannot even imagine doing it illegally, if you will, just even in a moment. I mean, I just can't. We got a comment. Whoa. Okay. I appreciate so Shantae Paul says, I appreciate your transparency, Dr. Kimberly Barrington. It is truly an inspiration to be able to hear your testimony. My son's father ended his life in 2019. He was very quiet about it. Here you go. He was very quiet about it, and we didn't see the signs, for he hid them, and by the time he went to get help, it was too late. But I'm grateful to know what to look for this time in order to potentially help save someone else who may be going through that. And then Lillian Howe says, everyone is different indeed.
Yes. Some people are very visible with the signs that they're going to take their life, and others just quietly go away. But let's go back to the fentanyl for a minute, Dr. Kim. It's very easy to get it. In fact, it's too easy to get it. That is a major problem. It's not just the fentanyl. There are a number of drugs that the kids are using that potentially can take their lives. And unfortunately, you can stand on a street corner and get everything you want.
And back to social media, I'm sure if you did a Google search or anything else, how to end your life, unfortunately, that information is going to be out there.
That is pitiful.
And for people to search that as opposed to, reaching out for a crisis center, the number's been scrolling on the bottom, and just to really lift up what you said, Ellen, about spending time with your grandchildren and great grandchildren so that they feel heard, seen. Maddie's comment about always feeling left out. It's like that gets you in a terrible loop.
It does. And David, quite often, mental health help doesn't help. When the doctor just throws another pill at you.
Right.
Without hearing you. And of course, there's therapy that goes along with it. So I appreciate all the things that need to be done to help, but sometimes it just doesn't help. Sometimes it's just too late.
Right.
And the one thing that I've been able to share, and it has helped me tremendously in my practice over many years, is I do not ask anyone how they're doing if I don't have time to listen to them.
That because part right there.
People know that you're not, okay, you're looking at me. I see you're sitting there, but you don't hear me. When you say, okay, how are you doing? Okay, fine, good, goodbye. That won't get it, folks.
Yeah, but even if you ask me how I'm doing and I'm honest with you and I say, today is not a good day, and then you tell me, well, it'll be okay, it'll pass. That's not helpful either.
No, it's not helpful at all.
So
that's why you're listening with all your senses, Kim. And sometimes you don't walk away from the person who's sharing their pain with you. Sometimes you have to stay there. And you might actually save somebody just doing that.
Well, that challenge, again, what you were saying earlier, Ellen, that people don't want to see it. And then when you ask somebody, hey, how are you doing? And they start to say dropping their whole life story and how terrible they're feeling today. And it's like, yikes, I don't want to hear it either. And so, I mean, when people, because then do I feel inadequate to, like, what am I supposed to do in this situation? Because I'm not a mental health therapist.
No. Let me share a story with you because you are a mental health expert, just don't realize it. In an experience I had taking care of a case for hospice in a nursing home, southeast side of Grand Rapids, waiting to go up to the elevator to see my patient. A gentleman was standing there. He was sitting there, actually, and I said, "How you doing?" And he said, "Not so good." I said, "Well, I've got a few minutes. What's going on?" We ended up talking for half an hour, David. And when I left him, he said, "You know what? No one has listened to me all day. Sometimes you just have to invest a few minutes and give a person some time. You may not be able to change the outlook, but you were able to hear their input. And sometimes that's all a person needs."
That's all. Shayna says that fentanyl is the #1 drug in Baltimore, Maryland. And we have Imani. She said, it is a shame that you can get drugs quicker than you can get medical equipment. Okay.
Yes, girl.
Let's drop the mic, and I'm just going to roll away on that one.
That's the truth.
Oh, my Jesus. And Shayna says, yes, at times we just have to stay and show that we care.
People just want you to hear them. That's another thing I just want to touch briefly before we're done. I'm an old lady, and I raised, yes, girl, I've raised children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. I grabbed my granddaughter one day when she was living with me. Her daughter was probably 7. And she was yelling at her, trying to get her to move faster because she was late getting up. Instead of taking the time to hear what the child was saying, it was just barking orders at her, screaming at her. Parents, if you hear me out there today, do me this one favor. The way that you send your child out to school is the way that their day is going to go. If you don't have anything pleasant to say, then just hum a song, just smile, just do something. Quit screaming at that child as they're leaving. How do you expect someone to be okay when you've barked at them for 20 minutes on the way to school? You already set them up to have a crappy day. And if they have a crappy day once they get to school, it just keeps rolling, y'all. So we have to do some things as parents too that will be helpful. That's my bloody pulpit for today. I'm sorry.
Imani says, oftentimes we listen to respond, not to understand and comprehend.
Woo. Amen. Amen. That is profound.
Yes.
That is a profound statement. But Imani, girl, people know that you are just responding and that you're not comprehending. That person that's hurting knows that you really don't hear me. You can't wait to get away from me. So I'll say again, don't ask anybody how they're doing if you don't have time to listen.
That's true. Imani, can you please tell us where you are viewing from? And Shayna says, I ask my children all the time if they are sad, mad, depressed, or anxious about anything. We have that kind of relationship that we can talk about anything.
That's the plus, girl. Always. That is the best way to start your child's day out. And when they come home in the afternoon after having put up with children saying not pleasant things, maybe the teacher not being what she could have been that day, just things that go on all day long. Listen, they'll tell you what they feel. You just have to listen.
Yeah.
I remember my son, my youngest, experiencing such great racism at his school. And he had one teacher in particular that would make comments, and he just hated going in that room. And so he would always cause a big disruption. So she calls me, and says, hey, we're about to put him out. He can't be in here anymore. So I decided to come up there and sit and see. I said, I know my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I know them all. If you tell me that and one of mine, they talk too much, they get it honest. So tell me something I don't know.
Absolutely.
Are they being a social butterfly? I know, because they're like me. So tell me something that I don't know about them. And she, I'm waiting for her to find out what's going on. And just my mere presence in the room made number one made the difference for him to know that I was there and that I would come up against Big Pharma if I have to
Mm-hmm.
on his behalf. Now I said to him, I send you to school to learn and not act no fool with these white folks. You understand me? That I mean that. I said, but at the same time, she will not disrespect you. She will not disrespect you. She will not embarrass you, and I'm just not going to put up with that. And so I went there, and I would just sit in the classroom. And she told the principal, I don't think that's, do we have some kind of rule that says that a parent can't come and sit? And so I told her, I said, now you know how my son feels. I said,
Mm-hmm.
being the only black, I said, in your class, and you want to call him out, or you make comments, about fried chicken and basketball and,
Uh-huh.
eating watermelon.
See, these
So
are the things that our children have to deal with every day. And the parent needs to do just what you did. Bust in there and see what's really going on. The teacher, one of my grandson's teachers, my grandson had a stutter, which made him, of course, self-conscious.
Right.
And getting him through school was, my daughter really had to work hard to care for him when he came home. This particular teacher made fun of his stutter. So all adults are not created equal when it comes to how to interact with children. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes they're just being themselves. But if your child is dealing with something, when they come home, you need to hear that and see how they're feeling and see what you can do about it. Children tell you what they need to
they
tell you.
do. Dr. Vitaji says they deal with a lot. And then Shana says we have to learn to be open and understanding, never to judge. And Imani says transparency is key.
It is.
Definitely.
It is.
I have learned that teachers are not always kind.
True.
And what's in you, as my daddy would say, what's in you is gonna come out of you, and it's gonna get
Yes,
all
it
over,
will.
and
Yes, it will.
everybody's gonna know about it. And so with teachers, there are times where what they can't say to an adult about how they feel, they're saying it to that child. So she certainly is not gonna come up to me and make some off-color comment,
No,
about eating chicken and watermelon, but you feel okay about saying it to my son.
you're a defenseless child.
But guess what? You're not going to do that to him neither.
No. Think about this, Dr. Kim, and David as well. In the inner city schools where our tax base is different because businesses aren't supporting it, all the things. You have a teacher who may have come from Idaho or Nebraska or someplace where there aren't many of us. They teach for 5 years to pay back their student loan, and then they go on back to wherever they choose to teach from. Do you really think that that teacher is sensitive to your inner city child, be that child Hispanic, African American, or any shade of brown? And they came from, don't get mad at me if y'all in Idaho, um, but
There's some listening.
let's just be real. You don't have the exposure. You don't know me because you haven't been around me, and you're not going to open up your mind to get to know me. We have to be culturally sensitive to people. And that's not a gift that people necessarily are born with. It's a learned thing, just as racism is learned, as far as I'm concerned, because my neighbors, cute little blonde kids, would play with my little brown kids, and they had no problem because they were kids. They didn't know any better. They thought we're having a good time, we're playing. They didn't see color. Well, they learned it as time went on. But thank goodness my neighbors were good because we're still neighbors and I still see those kids. They still come to my home. It's a learned behavior.
Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely.
I want to just address this before we have to end this. The loved ones left behind.
Mhm.
I'm one of those that was left behind. And it was probably 6 months before I could really get out of bed and have a conversation with anyone. I'm a spiritual person. People prayed for me, people helped me get up and get on with life. That is a period of time where you need some help badly. The loss of a child is the most traumatic loss that anyone can have. We're supposed to outlive our children. And if you have lost a child due to suicide or whatever the circumstances is, then you need help. Don't let the stigma stop you from getting the help that you need, because at that point you are at risk as well. You really are. So take care of yourself and
I
get the help you need.
yeah, I remember. Oh, my uncle. And he was doing seemingly well. He had gotten off of drugs, was in the church, was in a group called Promise Keepers. He had learned to play the drums. He was playing the drums for church. In fact, I think he was supposed to be going to rehearsal, and he was getting his things in the car and then hung himself right there in the garage.
Mm.
That I didn't get it. I mean, here he is loading up the car to go to rehearsal. The house door was open, the garage door is open, and his things are in the car. And then you just stop and decide that I don't want to do this anymore.
It wasn't at that moment that he decided, Dr. Kim. He had made that decision and lived with that pain for a long time.
I remember coming home from the service. I came home to bring my kids home, and he would he would smoke. That's the only thing I knew that he did. He drank and he smoked marijuana. I don't know if he did anything harder than that. Um, I remember coming back on leave from the Navy, and he was so high that he had a razor, and he slit his wrist coming down this way. You know, when you come this way, he slit it coming down this way, and it was just all open. And I just thought about my military training, because we train on what to happen in case, we're attacked, and to use all of that and get him bandaged up and get him to the emergency. And I mean, I stayed until the end, so we had this relationship. He was in the Navy as well.
The pain that he was in, Dr. Kim, was
And
overwhelming.
Mm.
and it's not that I didn't know, but it's like we taught, and I felt he was just there, and he had something that gave him purpose, made him feel useful. Because when you talk about comments that family make and things that they say about you, I definitely know about those things. Oh my gosh, we got lots of comments about that. And just to think like, okay, here we are. I think we finally made it. And then he was gone just like that, but here we got comments. So Lillian Howell Bell says, I am dealing with a very close family friend with real problems from childhood, being parental abuse. He is so far gone until it's very sad to see him coming. He is 70 plus years old, and his past, oh wow. Wait a minute. Oh, there's so much. All right. And his past is still present and it's eating him alive. Uh-oh. Wow. I will continue to pray, support, and love him for who he is. I try to encourage when he's discouraged, but he is on a roller coaster. The behavior has spilled over with his children, relationships, family, and everything else. It's ongoing, and as a person, he cannot be left alone. He has been beaten throughout life, but God is able. So yes, mental health is a terrible disease, and we all need to be better at being accountable and offering our best help. Shantae Paul says, I think doctors, caregivers, teachers, and social workers should have to take a class in learning the symptoms of depression and how to help those with disabilities manage their symptoms. It should be a requirement. Thank you so much for Jason tuning in. Thank you for Daphne Gaddy for tuning in. We appreciate you.
The struggle is real.
It is.
Yeah.
And instead of it being a month, it's not a month, y'all. It's every single day. Every hour someone takes their life because they can't go on. And those that are left behind, we don't understand. I had one thing that helped me, and it was probably a year after my grandson died. One of his friends said to me, Miss Ellen, you think that his suicide was because of everything that was going on in his life? You feel like you're personally responsible? What he did was what was best for him. He wasn't trying to hurt anybody. He did what was best for him. And believe it or not, that actually helped me a little bit because I felt like there was more I could have done. But I realize now, 10 years later, that there was nothing that I could have done. Because I want you to know, folks, that I tried everything that I could to keep him here. The first time that he told me that he didn't want to live, he was 10 years old.
Mm.
And I just said, oh, baby, you don't mean that. Let's go to the park. Wrong answer. Sometimes going to the park doesn't work, folks. It never does. If a person is hurting inside and you can't see the level of pain that they have, there's nothing you can do at the time except just be there, just be present. We can't stop anything, but we can at least be in the room. We can be present and offer as much support and as much love as we can. But no matter what, this still hurts. And it always
really
will.
It really does. I think that if I hope this was helpful, because the people that are left behind are left with so many questions. And what could I have done differently? Why didn't I do enough? And even as you were talking, you used all of your training to identify and to teach others, and yet it still wasn't enough. And if I heard you correctly, you said you knew something was different from the time he was in pre-K, and that it just matriculated along with him. So I would have to say, if you have, number one, any inkling, please dial 988. We are rolling in 50 states and in 10 countries. 988 works no matter where you are. So wherever you are, if you feel lonely, depressed, thank you, Shayna. She said this was a great show. Uh, please dial that number. Please dial that number. Reach out and at least give yourself a couple more days. And maybe medication isn't working for you, but go back to your doctor and you can tell them, hey, this doesn't work for me. I have found on this journey that not every single medication works for everybody, especially the Black and Brown community. There are many medications that we cannot take that they give, especially to Caucasians. And if you read the label and the warning signs, it'll say that, this medication is not good for persons of color. There are several medications, especially heart medications, that do state that. And so you need to make sure that you check your medications. The other thing is that it's not just about a pill, but it's about having a conversation as well. Someone who has overcome, I don't even want to say outgrown, but I guess my brain has matured enough that dying is not the answer. That I'm more, better to everybody if I'm here.
It's a permanent solution, Dr. Kim, to a temporary problem.
It is. And I realized that, but it took a text message from someone else all the way. I was here in Michigan and they were in Illinois. And that's what saved my life, was this text message a few years back when I thought that I could not continue on. We have a couple comments before we close up, but Lillian says, sharing is caring. This session was very helpful. Awareness is always good. Educational advice is always helpful. Thanks to all of you. Shantae says, the pain truly left behind from suicide to the family and friends is a daily nightmare. Please reconsider. Don't make a permanent decision. Jason says, I was suicidal. I did not want to be here. Then I found, he says, then I found God and he led me to my purpose and my passion in life. And also, God put the right support team in my life. Shantae says, take it day by day and know that you are important. Whew.
Wow. I'm just going to say, Dr. Kimberly, this topic has by far, I think, gathered the most comments from folks because it's real. And I hope everybody out there has the opportunity to talk about it. If you're the person feeling the suicidal thoughts or having the suicidal thoughts, as Dr. Kimberly said, 988, call, at the very least, reach out. And then with our few moments left, Ellen, unfortunately, we're not going to prevent 100%. And I mean, and death is there for all of us. So what do we do, those of us left behind? What are some 2 or 3 things we should be focused on for ourselves?
First of all, self-care. Build a team of people that will support you. Try things medically that will help you. And don't be afraid if that thing that you are given on that prescription pad doesn't work, because there are other things that can be taken. I would ask that people not try to medicate with substance. Get help from other sources if at all possible. But more important than anything, tell your story. If it hurts, just say it hurts. And keep saying it until that one person that you love hears you. That's all we can do, David. It is. This has been a valuable time today for me. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Amani says, surround yourself by positive influences. And do you have a particular therapist that or group that you know that was really good during your time that we can give to the audience?
Yes. And I'm going to just go ahead and put her name out there because she was, you know, just thinking about it is painful, but she helped me. Melita Davis was her name.
Melita Davis, and she's with who?
She's a private counselor, and she does great things.
Okay, so that answers Lillian because she says, were the recommendations for therapy in Kent County, Michigan? If you are a veteran, you can go to the Wyoming Outpatient Clinic to get
Yes.
services, or you can go down to the Healthcare for Homeless Veterans, which is on Commerce. Those are two places that you can receive counseling right away. You can go to the vet center on, what is that, Breton and Burton, to get counseling. It's available. And Shantae says, I thank all three of you for reminding me that there is hope. I was suicidal and I did not want to be here. Amen. Thank you for transparency and willingness to get help. And Monique Reddick is watching. Thank you so much, Monique. You'll have to watch the replay. And Lillian says, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Again,
Yeah,
as we
well,
close, if you are watching via GRTV 25, today is Tuesday, September 3rd, and it is National Suicide Prevention Month. Please, if you are experiencing any type of crisis, please dial 988. That number works in all 50 states and outside of the country, as we are rolling in 50 states and in 10 countries. And we're all here. We have many episodes that can help you. Go back on YouTube at 100 Shades and watch the replay. You can watch this over again. And again, you can reach out to Miss Melita Davis, private counseling. And I do believe that you can go to, if you are in the Kent County area, you can go to Network 180.
Yes.
You can also go to Arbor Circle, which is available here.
There's much help out there. We just have to reach out for it.
Definitely. Dave?
My final thought is I took Amani's advice an hour ago and I surrounded myself with positive influences. And that's the two of you. So thank you both. Thank you both for your presence and your witnessing on this absolutely critical issue.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Kim, for having me today.
I didn't hear you.
Thank you for having me today. My pleasure.
Absolutely. 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 The time is now 1:04, and we've been on, I should say, an hour and 4 minutes. That's the time. And this was an awesome, awesome day. I think the best one, just whenever you know that you have truly helped someone and you've answered some questions. I am so much like Jesus that he says, if I can help just one,
Just one.
just one, you know, when he went back just for that one lost sheep, he told the 99, stay right here. There's that one. Just know that there is somebody who will come back just for you, that one. That you may feel like you're away from the group and you're alone, but there is somebody who's gonna come back just for you. You gotta believe it. You really, really do. And I love a call to action. And I call to every one of our viewers and those who will watch the replay. I challenge you this week, just this week alone. We'll talk about next week, but just this week alone, stop and listen to someone's story. Don't placate them. Don't be condescending towards them, but just in that moment, be in the moment with them and just listen. And I bet you they'll tell you, you know what? You saved me today. You saved me today. So go out and save a life. And you know how you do that? Just by listening. Thank you. We're going to just put a comma. We will see you on tomorrow. Hopefully we can continue the conversation. And I do have a person in mind. They said they're ready for the show and they can talk about their experience when they wanted to end their life. I'm really hoping that tomorrow they can. They said they're ready, but if not, we will continue the conversation on